Good morning, everybody. Day 2 of the UCaaS event presented to you by the Cloud Voice Alliance. We want to thank y'all for attending. With me today, I've got Lori Stout of Bigleaf Networks to talk about the superhero behind every telephone call, video call, and everything that traverses your internet connection. And how can we make it better, Lori? Thank you for joining us. Lori, I hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. As Thomas mentioned, I'm the CMO of Bigleaf Networks. I've been here almost a year, but before I joined Bigleaf, I was very entrenched in the UCaaS world. I've spent most of my career in the contact center and unified communications industry. Started out, if any of you remember, a little company called Interactive Intelligence a long time ago. They were purchased by Genesis, moved from there to Nice in Contact, went from there to TalkDesk, to Vonage, and then spent some time in the restaurant tech industry. So this concept of unified communications and customer experience and how we use technology to serve our customers is very near and dear to my heart. And it's fun to be back in an industry where it feels like I'm close to that again. So here's a statement that I think all of you can agree with. Businesses of all sizes, all types, all flavors rely on connections to the public internet to operate mission-critical applications and to communicate with their customers and with their employees and each other. So that makes sense, but I'm sure a lot of you, in talking to your clients, your end users, to your teams, you've seen this all too many times. You have an internet outage or downtime hits. It's an oh crap moment where everybody starts to really scramble. You're starting to hear from your customers and your employees, something's wrong with the internet. I can't connect. Is anybody else having this problem? It's very disruptive to work and it's very disruptive to business. So your IT professionals start trying to troubleshoot. What could this possibly be? Do we blow on it and plug it back in? No, that's not going to work. What do we do? Is it an ISP? Is it something inside the office? So they reach out to the ISPs and the app vendors, and are you having an outage? They're scrambling to look at trust sites and see what's going on. Meanwhile, they're scrambling and your employees and your customers are getting more and more frustrated. They can't reach you, they can't do their jobs. And everybody is just getting really annoyed that this is happening and they can't do their day-to-day and communicate with you. So naturally, productivity declines, your customers get frustrated and give up. And the symptoms of the problem maybe eventually resolve. Maybe that ISP comes back online and suddenly everybody's back on the internet again and everybody takes a sigh of relief, only for it to happen again. So this is an infinite loop of just chaos when the internet goes down that I think all of us have experienced at some point or another. And it causes a loss in productivity. It damages your business relationships. It frustrates your team. And it leads to revenue loss. So Gartner did a study where they were thinking about, well, what is this really tangible cost of downtime? What does that translate into besides just the frustration and kind of the top level, oh my gosh, this is awful. What does that really mean? So between the lost revenue, the lost productivity, how much it costs you to recover and get back online and recover those customer interactions that you're missing out on, and then the intangible costs of damage to your brand and your reputation and, just the way that people view your business as being reliable and consistent and easy to do business with, it costs an average of $5,600 a minute. And of course, this is an average, and you might be thinking, yeah, that sounds like way too much. There's no possible way. But when you start thinking about it, especially for sales businesses, e-commerce, customer service businesses, where every single interaction is critically important with your audience, it mounts up really fast.
This is especially important for smaller customers of ours who count on every dime that comes through that door. They can't see a patient, they can't bill. The internet's down. What do? It comes to a grinding halt.
It's a terrible patient experience. It's frustrating for providers. And that translates if you're a retailer, you're a restaurant, and you're trying to take online orders, it translates into every industry of every type. It's just not a good thing. So what does that mean specifically for UCaaS? Well, we collect a ton of data on the Bigleaf platform and we survey our customers And we found that without Bigleaf or without some of the things I'm going to talk about, there's about 604 hours of average downtime and unusable uptime on average for businesses per year. So that's 36,200 minutes of either complete downtime where you can't communicate with your audience at all, or they're experiencing jitter, packet loss, delays. It's just not a good experience. It's not a good look for the business. And it's really detrimental to your productivity, your employee engagement, your customer engagement. Everything suffers. So VoIP isn't the problem, it's the internet. And I think that's good news. There's so many amazing UCaaS and VoIP and conferencing technologies and cloud applications that have really transformed the way that we do business, but they need that reliable, flawless internet connection to be able to do their job. So what's the solution? Well, at Bigleaf for about 12 years now, we've been really looking into this concept of a site to cloud network optimization. So if you've heard of Bigleaf at all, you probably think of us as an SD-WAN provider. We're a little bit more nuanced than that, and I'll kind of get into some of why that is. But here's what you need to consider for your clients or for your business if you really want to optimize that experience. First of all, multiple ISPs. If you or one of your clients has one connection, one circuit, and you're trying to do everything on that, then I don't have to tell you how frustrating that can be and how that can really lead to more and more of this downtime and unusable uptime. Also, connection diversity. So whether that's wireless, DSL, satellite, fiber, whatever the case may be, having different types of connections to route and handle these different types of traffic and to make sure that they're all flowing appropriately is really important. And then same IP address failover. This is something that Bigleaf does exceptionally well that we're really proud of. And a difference between this and just kind of what we all think of as failover is that when your IP address doesn't change, when you have an outage or unusable uptime and you're routing your traffic a different way, then there is no disruption whatsoever. There's no perceivable glitch, downtime, delay, jitter, anything. If you're in the middle of that interaction, it's just seamless and nothing appears to be different to either end of that conversation. Bidirectional quality of service. This is another thing that we've really worked hard to refine at Bigleaf. This is that idea of being able to route important traffic. So whatever channel that looks like to you, if it's voice traffic, email traffic, you're going to need to prioritize some type of traffic over another one day to the next. You have complete control over how you prioritize that traffic. You decide what's important to you and your customers, and then you can route that appropriately both ways. You can control what's being uploaded and downloaded on which circuit. And it's just a really great way to ensure that you're in control of the way that internet traffic is flowing. And then again, if something goes wrong, there's that seamless IP address failover, so it's imperceptible to your audience. And then automated monitoring. I'm guessing that no one joining us today has worked for a company or with a client where everybody has so many IT resources, they just don't know what to do with them, and everybody's just waiting for something to do. The fact that there are automated monitoring tools available that can help your clients log into a dashboard and immediately see what's being captured so that they can make decisions on the spot. That's all happening automatically behind the scenes. So again, thinking back to that infinite loop that we just talked through, that scrambling is really kept to a very bare minimum because you can log into the dashboard and it just works. Oops. So here are 4 questions to ask yourself for optimal UCaaS performance. UCaaS is a huge investment for a lot of business, no matter what the size or no matter what the investment. It's a lot of money when you're thinking at scale of what people are investing to be able to communicate with their customers and with each other. So first, can the network detect changes to internet connection performance in real time? This really helps eliminate some of that reactive scrambling and I don't know which connection isn't working. And if your network is detecting, oh, this circuit is underperforming and we have this really valuable VoIP traffic, I'm going to route it over to this other connection. That's all happening behind the scenes and it's being monitored for you. The quality of your connection is constantly changing. We've all seen this, when we're using Wi-Fi in public spaces. Without that real-time detection and the ability to reroute and monitor and track what's going on with your internet traffic, you just can't guarantee your VoIP and video performance. We've all seen that UCaaS is becoming increasingly important, and that's not going to slow down. And by the end of next year, only 25% of business meetings on average will take place in person. You would be amazed at how many companies still have their meetings on Zoom or Teams while they're in the office. And, it's never going to change that we have to communicate with our customers over these platforms, and we need to do it reliably. Second question, does the network automatically adjust your QoS policies to changes in connectivity, again, in real time? Is that rerouting happening? Think about the last time you were in a traffic jam and you're trying to get your GPS plugged in and see if there's an alternate route you can take. That's what Bigleaf does. It has a big picture of all of the different traffic routes, all the different streets. Pretend that you are that packet of information that needs to be prioritized. It's like a little express ramp for you to get where you're needing to go with the minimal amount of disruptions. The ability to say this type of traffic or these communication channels are the most important to me or my client, and then to route those and make them more important than all other traffic types is critically important. That all has to happen in real time. So for 86% of consumers, a great service experience is enough to convert them to brand fans. We've all had that experience where we're kind of expecting just a customer experience, and then we're really wowed. It's really easy to communicate with the company, and we feel like they really hear us, they hear our problem, we're in and out, they solve it quickly. And, after that, we're like, hey, that was a really good experience. I want to do business with them again. And if you don't have that QoS in place, it's impossible to prioritize that traffic within the network. That high value traffic that means the most to you and your customers might lag, it might get dropped, and it's a suboptimal experience, and you're not going to create any brand fans that way. Question 3. Does the network have failover for any VoIP or UCaaS provider without manual configuration or policies? Going back to what I said about we're not all just overloaded with IT professionals for like, hey, give me something to do. That all has to happen manually. And if it doesn't, you run the risk of costly, complicated, ineffective installations that require a ton of IT service and support and may fail when it matters most because they're not configured properly. And 76% of UCaaS buyers prioritize process improvement and efficiency in purchasing decisions. They just want it to work. They don't want to have to reconfigure policies to constantly be monitoring what's going on. Is this working with the rest of my tech stack? They want to plug it in and they want it to work. And last but not least, question number 4, will the network support my non-VoIP and non-video traffic with the same core benefits? This one becomes increasingly important. We all know that voice is still a very important channel, and I think it always will be. But 76% of consumers demand a consistent experience no matter how they engage with a company. We've seen over the past decade how many new channels and ways to communicate have emerged in the business world, and what our clients are using and adding and trying to figure out how to do all of these channels right, while still doing voice, which is the most personal and interactive and in-demand channel, doing that correctly and making sure it's a consistent and flawless experience. If your users have a great VoIP and video experience, but a bad experience on other channels, it's going to leave them frustrated. It's going to leave them confused about the brand. It'll leave them not knowing what to expect the next time they interact with that business. Consistency is absolutely crucial. So before we wrap up here, just to talk a little bit about how Bigleaf works. If you're not familiar with us, as I mentioned, we're usually kind of bucketed in the SD-WAN category, but we're a little bit different than that. So we install the customer network edge outside the firewall, which makes us a little bit different. We can work with basically any security provider. We can work with any ISP, multiple ISPs. And you don't have to reconfigure your security policies. You don't have to do the manual configurations. You literally just plug in Bigleaf and type in a little information about your IP, and it works. And you start to see that improvement immediately, where behind this, it's constantly tracking what those overlay tunnels are doing, and it's bringing control back to you on the path that you're taking this internet traffic and how you prioritize it to offer the best experience to your employees and your customers. We also have a proprietary cloud access network that connects to any cloud application, whether it's Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, whatever the case may be. It's working in the background to make that connectivity flawless. And, again, if there's an outage on one of your circuits, it's an imperceptible change because it has that same IP address failover. So
Hey, Lori, we've got Bill McLean here, and I know he's a big leaf guy. Maybe he's at the maple leaf status. I don't know, but I wanted to bring him in and kind of share some personal experience on how Bigleaf has helped him and his business.
Yes, Bill. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Lori. Listen, everybody, I've been working with Bigleaf for 8 or 9 years. And, you guys have heard me say this before. I've been in business 27 years. It takes a lot to impress me. And when a new tech comes out, you get bombarded with emails. Hey, try this, try this, try. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So a really good friend of mine and somebody that some of you may know, Louis LeBlanc, who's a provider. He happens to be in Portland, which is where Bigleaf started. And he calls me one day and he's like, hey, you need to check this out. And we all listen to our peers more so than we listen to Lori. Sorry, Lori, because we trust each other, right? We know when we find something, we want to share it with our peers to help them. And so he calls me and I tried it out. And, so 8, 9 years ago, the technology that they had was good, but it's done nothing but improve ever since. More features, more capabilities. And the reason I wanted it was a defensive reason. Here you go and you struggle finding a client. Maybe it's a decent sized client. Maybe it's 100 seats. And it just takes a lot to win that business. And the last thing you want to do is lose that business because your VoIP isn't performing, because their network is not performing. So an example would be, I had a client that had about 100 seats. They had 2 circuits. They had their firewall configured for failover. They had VLANs. You would think, it's 100 meg fiber and another circuit. And you would think, oh, yeah, VoIP will work fine on that, right? No, because everything was just jumbled going through. And so it wasn't a terrible experience for them on their UCaaS, but I didn't like it. It was the BLFs weren't working perfectly. Sometimes transfers wouldn't go through. It was not enough where the client was really getting pissy or anything like that. But I noticed. So we put this Bigleaf in, and 2 things happened. One, service support calls went down. Didn't connect, call dropped, couldn't transfer, BLF buttons aren't working, et cetera, gone. So I was like, well, that just paid for itself without doing anything else. So you got the whole failover piece, right? And the dynamic routing, how circuits go up and down, not all the way down, but they get degraded. And so most firewalls will only detect when something goes down, hard down, right? And so, the firewall thinks, hey, it's up. I'm getting a link light, so it's still up, so I can keep pushing voice over that. But what Bigleaf does is it I don't know how many times a second, like 10 times a second or something. It's checking the circuit. It knows what it's supposed to be delivering, and if it degrades, it checks the other circuits at the same time, and it moves the voice dynamically. So what happens is the client never knows. They never know. I mean, a circuit could go totally down and they don't even know. And my largest client has about 1,500 seats. And if you called the CEO today of that client and said, hey, how come your networks never go down? The CEO of a big car dealership group. And she's going to respond, Bigleaf. Does she know what Bigleaf does? Does she know how it works? No, she just knows that ever since we put it in all of their dealerships, they don't go down. We had one dealership that they bought that we put a big leaf in, but we were burying fiber. It was going to take like, oh God, you know how that goes, months. And they only had a cable modem. They went down for a day after a big storm. It's over near the Eastern Shore. It cost them $60,000 for one day of outage. And so, you know, it's a no-brainer for them. It's like, we can't have all these dealerships going down for even an hour. You know, you were talking about the $5,000 a minute or something like that, I think. I mean, it depends on the business. That was an average, you know, so depending on what the business is, think about financial services. You know, you couldn't make a trade because your internet was down. Dear God, what are you going to tell your client? Oh, sorry, I just lost you $40,000 because we didn't sell when you told me to sell. So redundant services like that. And the last thing I'll say, and sorry, Lori and Thomas, but I'm obviously very passionate about this. You're protecting yourself. If you're protecting your business by putting this in place, and I put it in place, and do I charge my clients for it when I can? Yeah, sure. But really, I would do it even if I'm paying for it, because if you think about the cost of a big leaf for a 100-seat UCaaS deal, and you lose that UCaaS deal because of fluctuations in circuits and things like that, the best defense is to be offensive. Put the big leaf in, never worry about it, reduce the number of support calls, and boom, you'll have that client forever, because they'll never have a hiccup. And sorry for stealing your thunder, Lori, but you know me.
Well, Bill, I think you supplemented Lori's presentation really, really well, because it's one thing to hear it from Lori and Bigleaf directly, but when we hear the experience from an everyday user or someone who supports their customers with Bigleaf, and hey, look, this is how it changed how we do business and the dynamic for our customers, I think that speaks volumes. Very great input. Thank you.
We appreciate you so much, Bill. And I should have just had you do the whole presentation because you hit everything that I wanted to cover. But it really does mean a lot when our partners and their end users talk about, hey, we're not just saying this. You know, I'm a marketer. It's easy for me to get up here and say this, but it really does just work. And I love your comment that the best defense is having that offensive move and getting this put into place before you actually need it. So I know we are almost out of time here, but I wanted to just see if there were any questions. If you want to meet me in the booth, I'll be there after this. We have a cost of downtime calculator. We have free demos available. We would love to talk to you about what you and your customers need. If you've experienced some of these issues, we could help maybe get a tech evaluation in place for you. So please do reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, before we jump off, Lori, Kristen asks, does Bigleaf offer various models tailored to small, medium, and large companies based on their perceived budgets, or is this a one-size-fits-all model? That's a great question.
That's a great question. Hey, Kristen, thank you for that. So we have pricing and packaging that's tailored to the kind of business that you're working with. So we have volume-based pricing for some of the larger deals, and we have different speeds and package sizes that can really be customized to what that particular business needs, what kind of traffic they're running. Definitely not one size fits all. I just mentioned that we have tech evaluations, so we really try to get in there and figure out what will be the best package size and speed that will deliver the best results without costing the business any more money.
Awesome. Well, Lori, thank you again for joining us today at the UCaaS event, and all of the attendees for supporting Lori and listening to what Bigleaf can do for you. Thank you again, Lori, and we'll see you soon.